Welcome to the Data Science Festival. Hello all. We are excited to bring you our 8th festival, the Oktoberfest. I am Arzak. I will be the host, the MC in this room. Thank you all for coming and helping us to create such a thriving community. Would you please, just some housekeeping rules, would you please just silence your phones? You will find the schedule of the talks in your bags. If you have any kind of question, you can just turn up to any of the volunteers or data science festival team with the t-shirts. You will know them. There is also free water at the back of the room. Just help yourselves. The DSF is a celebration of all things data. We aim to connect the tech community and foster the sharing of knowledge, inspiration, and ideas. Just a reminder that all talks will be recorded, so if you found a room that is too full, you can just head to another talk and you can watch back the talk that you missed later. This year, we are bravely serving hot food at the festival during lunch, so please be gentle with us. This is the first experience, and mind the other people queuing. If you are looking for vegetarian, vegan, or gluten-free options, please look out for one of our amazing volunteers holding a sign to direct you to the correct lunch station. This event is free to attend and built by the community. Without the help of our sponsors, we couldn't make this event the success it's been. Thank you to Data Idols, Time Extender, Starburst, Bumble, Monzo, Hyman's Robertson, Mars Pet Care, BSI, The Trade Desk, Direct Line Group, Marks & Spencer, Dunnhumby, Clio, Create Community, and finally CodeNode, who have provided us with such a great venue. Thank you again for attending the Oktoberfest. We hope you have a great time. Check out the back of your booklets for a pint on us and have a wander into the beer garden. We have 2 great competitions today. Win some sweet DSF goodies. These details can be found in your booklet as well, and also on signs around the venue. We are starting the day with our speaker here, Louisa Flemington, with the title talk, Beyond Magic, How to Talk About Data Science with Non-Technical Audiences. She is a lead data scientist at Red Version. She's worked as a data scientist building models and data products for a range of teams and use cases, working with product CRM, marketing, SEO, finance, front-end, back-end, and cross-functional teams, to name but a few. After pivoting from acoustics to retrain in data science, she worked for 4 years at Trainline before moving to Version Red. So good luck.
Hi everyone, it's lovely to see so many of you here today. As mentioned, I'm Louisa and I work at Virgin Red. I'll explain a little bit more about Virgin Red for those of you who don't know who we are. But today I'm hoping to give a bit more of a soft skills talk rather than an in-depth technical talk. You'll probably get a lot more technical talks from other people. But I think it's just as important for making data science a success as about how to work with your audience, with different audiences, more technical and less technical. So we'll focus on a couple of different things. We'll talk about this phrase magic and how often we get banded as magic and why I don't necessarily think that's a good thing. We'll talk about some of the different audiences we can work with. We'll talk about how to get included in the right projects, and we'll talk about, once you've had a success, how to share those successes. So we'll start with, what is Virgin Red? Hopefully you've all heard of Virgin. Virgin Red is what we call the red thread that links the Virgin companies together, like this lovely red thread around this lady. Essentially, we're a loyalty program. What you might not know is that all the different Virgin companies, so Virgin Hotels, Virgin Atlantic, Virgin Voyages, to name a few, they're all actually completely separate companies. But what we found from our research is that members and customers of all the different Virgin companies expect it to be one company and expect to be treated like we know who they are from company to company. So what we're trying to do with Virgin Red is to link that experience together. So what it means is that you can earn Virgin points. You can earn them through buying a train ticket with Virgin Trains ticketing or staying at a Virgin hotel. And you can also earn it through a whole range of other things like a typical loyalty program. So buying at John Lewis or Bloom and Wild, for example. And then you can save up your points and spend it on flights or wine or an experience day. Pretty simple, really. That's who we are. So diving straight in, I want to talk about what's wrong with the term magic. So you've probably experienced a couple of times when you've worked with a team, somebody completely different, and delivered a project, and at the end of the project they go, oh wow, that's really magic, or oh, that's wizardry. I don't know how you do it, but it looks great. Now, it's quite nice. It's quite nice to be told you're magic. It feels quite clever. We've all grown up with Harry Potter and wizards and magic and stuff. But I actually think there are two main reasons why it's not necessarily a good idea. The first is that I think with magic, we kind of feel like you wave a magic wand and it's done. And it completely detracts from all the work that you've done to get there. Data science projects are often quite long projects. They take a lot of time. And if you say, oh, it's just magic, it's done, you get people coming up to you like we've had recently where people say, oh, we've got a marketing campaign in 2 weeks' time. Can you just build us a model and give us an audience, please? Thank you very much. Which doesn't really work. And I think having that expectation that things are long and complicated is a good thing. The second problem with magic is that people expect you can do absolutely anything. So we've had, again, teams come up to us with 2 weeks' worth of data and said, can you look into this? We've gone into a bit more depth and realized that when we're looking at the granularity, they've basically got a data point per day, excluding weekends. So that's 10 data points, and they're asking us to build a fancy model out of it. So when you have this expectation that you can do anything, it doesn't necessarily work in your favor. So that's why I think it's not a good thing. And hopefully we'll talk a little bit about how we can work around that. So there's lots of different people you may work with. You might be working in a more cross-functional team where you work with these people every day. It might be a more kind of consultancy. You're delivering a project for one team. But however it works, you'll probably come across a number of these different groups and teams as you work together. Now, there are some people in those teams that might be more data literate. The wider data team, data engineers, data analysts, BI, they probably know a bit more about what's going on. Even teams like kind of software engineers and finance, they're more numeric literate than some of the other teams. But I think the biggest distinction between the two here is actually between your senior managers and the other teams that you'll be working with closely day to day. So we'll talk about those two groups separately. So first, we'll talk about working with other teams and how we go about it. I've got 4 main takeaways here. So the first one, before we even start, I think it's really important to educate people about what you do. I think data science can often sit in the corner and people don't necessarily understand exactly what you do. We found it's been really helpful to run lunch and learn sessions. We've done them with the entire company. We've done them specifically with, say, the finance team. And you can tailor them a little bit. They always seem to be called demystifying data science. I don't know why that's a thing. But they work really well as a way to just break down a little bit more about what a model might be. Not going into too much detail, but just understanding the process, how long things take, the different steps along the process. Office hours is another great one for people just to come in, to speak to you, for you not to be that scary team in the corner. The second thing, once you're working with different teams and different projects, is actually to force yourself to check in more regularly. It's very easy to say, fine, we'll go away, build a project, and just come back to you at the end when it's done. But the problem with that is, one, you might get to the end and actually what you've delivered is completely not what they wanted at all. But also, secondly, if you're checking in regularly, you're almost forced to give a bit more detail about what you're doing at every single time. So that's something that we try and do a lot now, is every time we have a team, we at least once a month have a check-in with our main key stakeholders. Thirdly, I think it's really important to talk about these things with other people. So I'm not saying discuss hyperparameter tuning and all the ins and outs of the metrics that you're measuring, but I think most people seem to understand the concept of having to train a model, you need lots of data about what's happened in the past to be able to understand the future. And actually that data comes down to model features. And we just describe this as it could be some information about, say, how many points you've earned and spent in the last 12 months, or what proportion of Virgin companies compared to other companies you're spending with. You don't have to go into massive detail, but it starts to build up that picture. And actually, it's worked really well for us. So we've been building models in the past, predicting customer lifetime value, for example, where we've worked with the engagement team and they've suggested other metrics and features that we'd not thought about, such as which acquisition channel to come in on. And we've been building models predicting who's likely to tip their club card points into Virgin points, which is something you can do. We're building a propensity model to work out who those people are. And we had a great conversation with the teams about, could we find out whether the distance you live to a Tesco comes into consideration, or whether it's a Tesco Express versus a Tesco Extra. And all those conversations actually just make it a bit easier for the teams to understand what you're doing. And finally, kind of touched upon this already, but different people will have different technical skills. Over time, you may be able to get more and more in depth about the model, but don't assume anything to start with, and work out the level of your audience. That assumes that you're working on a project with people. Thinking about how to get into a project is kind of similar advice to how to network, really. At the start, I wouldn't say go out and try and find people interested in data science. Just go out and meet people. Get involved in events, whether you may have some kind of inclusion network. We've got kind of gender teams, LGBT teams, etc. It's just a way to meet people, essentially. We've got people, the employee people team groups, another nice place to meet people, or just team away days. Get involved, chat to people. Eventually, things will come around to what you do and who you are. That may naturally move into a formal meeting where you are chatting to people more regularly, maybe once a month. Sometimes you have nothing in common. So I'm talking about these projects I'm doing. Someone in marketing might be doing something totally different and nothing overlaps. But every now and again, there might be something that comes up that you think, oh, that's really relevant to us. As soon as that happens, sign up and get involved. We've got one recently, so we've got recommender systems for all the different rewards that we sell. And at the moment, it's based on a simple, the reward itself. So, for example, we think you're most likely to want to spend your rewards on a flight to Barbados. We're starting to come in now with the idea of brand affinity. So we think you're interested in Virgin Atlantic. And because of that, it means that there's an opportunity to build a recommender at a different level. Because we've heard about those brand ideas coming up, we can start to get into those conversations, even if right now they don't need a recommender system to do it. So it's just about being involved as early as possible, going along to the updates and checking in to work out when it's important for you to be there. And equally important is just saying no when it's not relevant. One of my most used phrases is go speak to Simon in analytics. Sometimes it's just not your work, and that's totally fine. It's better to say no and free yourself up for the important data science work. So that's about working with teams. What about senior stakeholders? Now, senior stakeholders are slightly different in that I would say they're a lot more time poor. That as much as they'd like to, they're probably unlikely to come to you on lunch and learns, and you're probably unlikely to get much time with them at all. So number one is just think about using your time as wisely as possible. You won't have very long. Think about their data experience. You may be really lucky that you're talking to a chief data officer or a chief CTO, chief technology officer, who knows about these kind of things, but you may equally be talking to someone in the marketing team or somebody who's not come across data science much at all. I would always say aim for the person who has the least knowledge in the room rather than the most knowledge. You're not going to be dumbing it down too much. It's important that everybody understands what you're talking about. I think it's really important to understand their goals. So is a particular team member constantly talking about MAUs? Are they talking about conversion rate? Are they talking about, I don't know, are they actually really interested in how much revenue you're bringing in as a team and whether it covers the data science salaries? Everybody's got different things that they care about, and I think it's just worth focusing on that time. You're not going to be there giving them hundreds and hundreds of metrics of everything you've done, so focus on the main important ones. At Virgin, we actually have a purpose filter, so a lot of our exec and CEO are actually caring about how it can impact the environment or people's lives. And again, it's making sure that we tailor that conversation. We've automated something to free up someone's time so they can train and do something else. That is an equally important metric for the people we're talking to. And finally, I think it's really important to craft a story to sell. It'd be quite easy for our recommender system, for example, to turn up, stand up, show a table of some transactions and say, here are our transactions data. We'd like to improve our recommender system by adding some favorites and clickstream data. Doesn't really sell a nice story, and it's not very engaging. However, you could turn it around and say, right, this is Jemima. Jemima's really interested in Virgin Atlantic. She really wants to go flying. But because she's still saving up her points, we don't yet know from her transactions data that she's interested in Virgin Atlantic because she's not done it yet. However, if we introduced her favorites data where she's favorited the flight because she's saving up for it, and her views data and clicks data where she's looking at that flight every day, it brings you an extra bit of information that makes our recommendation systems better. That's a much more compelling story and something that the senior leadership team are much more likely to buy in. And finally, I just wanted to talk a little bit about promotion. With this, I think the key takeaway is just sell yourself as much as you can. So sign up for demos, you might have team updates. We have insight sessions where it's actually about what we know about members and customers, but we can use it to come in and say, oh, well, we learned this from a model. You're kind of secretly selling the model on the side, but you're also giving insights. So depending on the session, you can sort of tailor what you're talking about, but try and aim to talk whenever you can at these sessions. It might be that your company is much more involved, does much more of its communication through Slack, through newsletters. That might be the way forward. Experiment with that. And again, like I said before, with checking in, talk about the progress. Don't just wait till 3 months down the line when you've got a big fancy model to show. Talk about what you've done along the way, what you've learned, things that happen. Because I think that way you're much more front of mind, much more often. Actively look out. Don't expect people to come to you and ask what you've done. Actively go out there, find these opportunities to go and talk to people. And again, use the metrics that they are interested in. So for example, rather than thinking, okay, we've built a model and go into the technical detail, what have you changed for that other person? By doing your work, how have you improved a customer's experience? How have you improved someone's team experience? Think of it that way and try and deliver the message that way instead. So if I was going to sum it up with 3 key takeaways, I would say get involved, say yes whenever possible, even if it might not be a data science opportunity at the start. Obviously, pick relevant opportunities. You don't have to do absolutely everything. Secondly, tailor it to the language of your audience. So do they need to get the information out through a PowerPoint presentation, through Tableau? Are you using the right metrics for them? And finally, get out there, shout about what you do as much as possible. And that's it from me. I think we've got time for some questions. Thanks very much. Yeah, I think that's a question. I think there's a mic coming. Okay.
Coming back to building story for senior stakeholders, imagine a situation where you have different functions in a room, finance, procurement, and marketing, for example.
Yeah.
How do you communicate to align to 3 completely different objectives?
It's difficult. I think hopefully your business will be aligning in some way on some overarching objectives, so I would focus on those. But actually, even in that time, you may be able to get a couple of different points across. I would focus on that big team objective first, but then if you have time to dig into it, maybe say, okay, so this will get us to Virgin's purpose as a whole. But also, I think it will help the finance team in this way, and also the marketing team in this way. So it's okay to tailor it to certain people as long as you've incorporated everybody's main goal.
Do you try to prioritize some function in?
I would say it depends on who's got the most power in the room, but I would still say maybe you need to tailor it to somebody in particular. But I would make sure you've got everybody in the room on board rather than isolating one person and just focusing down one path. That would be my advice.
So I know the gentleman front wants to ask a question. I'll pass the mic to you. Thanks for a very interesting talk. I wondered how you see your role and your team's role in talking about data ethics with your users.
It's an interesting thing. It's something we're looking at regularly. We kind of see ourselves as a data science team as a bit of a subject matter expert team as well. So whether it comes to generative AI that's coming now and data ethics, it's something we talk about. So we have regular, we call it Article Club, kind of team meetings every other week where we discuss different articles and things like ethics comes up. So we discuss it as a whole first, and then we kind of come up with a united opinion about what we think it is. And so then when we're asked about it, which we often are, kind of different people in different parts of the team, we've got that team opinion about what we do, what we don't do. It's also shaped by the company as a whole, because I think the company has opinions on ethics and things like that. But yeah, that's how we try and keep it together.
Sorry, I think we have time for one more question, so I'll leave it her to check.
I think you are first, so I'll let you.
Great presentation. I work with a lot of non-technical people on a daily basis, and one thing that really stood out from the presentation is the the magic thing, and I get that all the time. So
we have a Slack channel where we count the number of times people say magic.
So what's your how do you encounter that, or how do you kind of promote that it's not magic? Like, even though I've said it on numerous occasions, like, it takes time to build the algorithm.
Yeah.
But they don't kind of understand. It's like, how do you kind of dumb it down?
How do you dumb it? I think you've just got to start big and gradually get it down. So start with just the idea that it's a model, it's not magic. And then start with the fact that you have to build that model over time and kind of create the idea that, it takes months and months and these are the different steps. I think the biggest thing that we found is actually understanding the fact that the data that goes into the model is important, and the idea that you've got, for example, all the different features. That part of thing is what we found has made the massive difference. Understanding that it's not just throwing everything we can into a box, but throwing down different things. It does take time, I think. And when people say magic, sometimes we kind of let it go and laugh and keep going, and just, we know we've got work to do to keep it there.
Thank you so much, Louisa, and thank you all for listening. Let's give her a little applause.
Thank you.